Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the ISBC podcast. Today we're covering news and I'm joined by the lovely Annwen Burrows.
Hey, how are you?
Good, yourself?
Not too bad.
Very excited today. We are talking news, and I guess the first thing that came into my mind is how in a biased world at the moment do we still remain unbiased? Because to me that seems to be the number one issue in news.
Yeah, despite all evidence to the contrary, news 100% should be unbiased. And unfortunately, a lot of the time it isn't these days. It's not the space for opinion, not the space for comment, not the space for, angles, facts and only facts. That's what we need to stick to. It's really difficult in the 24/7 news cycle as well when you have so much clickbait and how are we going to get the audience in and all that sort of stuff. It makes it hard.
Well, it seems to be like the focus is about engagement, but we're forgetting that credibility is news's number one strength.
Yeah.
Without credibility,
you got nothing.
You got nothing.
You got nothing.
Now, you may get an added click or an added view or an added listen.
Yeah.
But is your integrity intact?
At what cost, right?
At what cost? And I think it is a price for integrity.
Yeah. Every country has its own news sources, so websites, newspapers, wherever you get your news from. So we can't talk specifically about the platforms that you're using. But what I can say is that the internet has a whole wealth of information in terms of actually having done the research to figure out where the news sources that you use fall from left through to right. So you can actually go and find out where your news sources fall on that scale. And the more sources that you can use around the middle as opposed to far left or far right, the better off we're all going to be.
I think that's incredibly important in this current day and age.
Yeah.
Obviously, an incredibly important ingredient when it comes to any kind of bulletin is nailing the lead line.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't necessarily know what we mean when we say lead line, it's the very first line of each story. And it's really important that you nail that by summarising the story. Now, you're not going to put any real detail or anything in there because that comes in the sentences afterwards. But for that first line, summarise the story for me. The other important part with the lead line is names. Don't include names. The only exception to that rule is if you're talking about like the president or the prime minister or whatever, really important people who everybody knows, then you can put their name in there.
Okay. But we had an interesting conversation because you love this reference, rip and stick. Now, I'm quite sure that most of our friends internationally would have no idea what you're talking about when you say rip it and stick it. What do you mean and why should we avoid it?
Yeah, no, that's fair. So rip and stick is something that really upsets me about students where they will go to a news website, they'll find an article that they want to report on, and they will quite literally copy and paste into their bulletin.
No.
Yeah, that's such a no-no. I mean, for so many reasons, it's a no-no.
Well, the first one's just straight out, it's copyright.
Absolutely. Someone else's intellectual property. You can't do that. It's not okay. But also, it's just straight up lazy. Like, what are you doing? You're not learning anything from that process.
But it doesn't make it your own.
No, it doesn't.
It's
Absolutely.
your story when you deliver it in your words. The moment you rip and stick, you're basically someone else.
Yeah.
That's not integrity.
Yeah.
That's not good content.
And the other issue with it is things are read, not said, right? So everything that is written on a page is written in a completely different way to the way that we would say it between the two of us. So depending on the format of the station that you're working on to do news, it's going to be more formal or less formal in terms of presentation, which is fine. But yeah, really avoid that, it's meant to be read, not said.
Formatics does play a part. Like the way we deliver on different formats is important.
Yes.
Obviously, the way we would deliver, say, on a hot AC station would be completely different to how we would deliver it on, say,
a news sport talk station.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if we're going down that road, what is it about presentation that's important in this kind of...
So I think it's really important when you write your scripts that you do a couple of things that just make it so much easier for yourself and make it so that everybody can understand you and you're not going to look like a complete idiot on air. Those things include making sure that you have names and places written out phonetically. So phonetically being as it sounds, okay? If you can write it out that way and in capital letters, I just want to say you want it to stand out really well on the page. That will help you with that sort of stuff.
Especially locally, because if you lose integrity locally if you can't nail names of places and people.
That's right.
And they'll let you know. You'll get the email. You'll get the phone call.
Absolutely. The backlash will come thick and fast, especially when you mess up Novak Djokovic. Like, people have a real bugbear about that one.
But I think it's even more. It's even more of a problem if you are in a town and you can't get what is the local diner's name, or if you can't get the local athlete's name correct.
100%.
That's when it comes like 3 times.
Yeah.
So I think it's incredibly important.
It comes back to that credibility thing, right?
Right. What kind of credibility do you have if you can't nail what's happening in your own backyard?
Yeah, that's so true. Double space your lines using a reasonably large font. That makes it a lot easier to read when you're under pressure and on live radio. And read your bulletins out loud before you go on air. I know it's so simple and people are like, I don't need to do that. You do. Believe me, you do.
100%, especially just for punctuation purposes.
Yeah.
Like, we all deliver slightly differently. We all have our own little nuances that make us who we are, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So it's even more important to identify that within the bulletin, within your script, to make sure that it's you, the best version of you, and you get the best outcome.
Yeah. The other thing that really annoys me is when people don't update their news. So if you're doing news every half an hour, update it every half an hour. If you're doing it every hour, update it every hour. But make sure that you have different news stories that are spinning. Obviously, you want to make sure that a massive story is getting enough coverage, but please make sure you update your news.
And this is when we normally catch our students out. We know when the morning team hands over their script to the afternoon team, because 1, often the news bulletin is now dated, and 2, it doesn't sound like them.
No, that's right.
And that's when we normally catch them out.
Yeah.
So the reality is you need to update, you need to freshen it up. And it's not just for you, it's also for the listener.
Absolutely.
What happened at 9 a.m. doesn't matter to the 4 p.m. crew.
Yeah. The other thing, slow down, because it's really easy to sound like a freight train when you first start delivering news. So really slow it down so that people can get everything that you are delivering.
Okay, we've talked about delivery.
Yep.
We've talked about the expectations. We're now talking about the competitive process. End of the day, it's ISBC. What's going to make a great demo? What is it about the news demo that you need to do to put yourself in the best position for success? And this demo, ironically, could be used for multiple purposes after ISBC. This could be what gets you your gig in industry.
Yeah. So when it comes to the content that you include, now when we do a bulletin every day, we're thinking breaking news, local news, national news, international news. So you also need to think about incorporating those things into the demo. So I would say absolutely include a local story. If you can showcase to me that you can really get in on the ground floor of your community and tell us what's happening there and get to the nitty-gritty of it, then that's going to be impressive.
There's no such thing as too local.
No.
You can be ultra local. And I think we were talking about this offline. And the reality is that, you should even, if you're in a college or a university environment, your local story can literally be your collegiate environment.
Yes.
Your collegiate community, and then transition into your actual local community side of things. There's no such thing as too local.
Agreed.
I think what's incredibly important too is that when you're creating this content, you should really be thinking about how you can make this work for you long term.
Yep.
Because you have a great opportunity right now. You are trying to create the best version of yourself in a demo, in a news capacity for ISBC.
Yep.
That content, if done right, could be used for multiple job applications. And it gives
reason
you,
why not.
Work smart, not hard.
I'm all for that.
Create the content you need to be successful long term.
Yeah. If you can include a big breaking story in there, great. We all love a bit of sizzle. That's fantastic. Now, there's 2 ways that you can go about putting together your demo. You could either provide a full bulletin, which is, from woe to go, or you can choose to cut together different stories. But what I would say about that is 2 things. Number 1, give us the whole story. We don't want snippets of stories. Make sure the whole story is in there. And number 2 is make sure that your cuts and transitions are smooth.
There is high risk, high reward in that scenario.
Yeah.
Find the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Audio grabs are an important component.
Really?
But in a demo, they can be either incredibly valuable,
yes,
or they can tank you. And
yes.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I look at an audio grab is this. If you have an audio grab that adds to your news and takes you to another level, then it's done its job.
Yep.
But the problem is identifying a good audio grab. Because if you use a poor one, they will not remember how well you read that bulletin. What they'll remember is how bad that audio grab was.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Audio grabs are super important. They not only provide context to a story, but they also provide legitimacy and gravitas to what it is that you are reporting on. So it's really important that you include an element like that. But like you say, you've got to get it right, because a really bad audio grab, whether that is that it doesn't add to the story, whether it is that the person that is doing the grab is not legitimate, if it's just an opinion of someone off the street, that ain't news, or whether it's the actual audio quality of the grab. Too low, too loud, distorted, it's a problem. So make sure you do take the time to get it right.
And that's kind of full circle, kind of takes us to the basic fundamentals again.
Yeah.
Have good levels, good audio quality.
Yes.
Do your research, plan and do your prep, and then focus on delivery outcomes.
Yep.
If you can do those 3 things, you have a chance to be in it.
If news is your thing, make sure you head to our website, isbc.co. Check out the different categories. There's plenty in the news, talk, sports space. And next episode, we're talking social media.